Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of On the Horizon. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. Got Eric Collette with me. Eric, it's been a while.
Yeah, it has. It has.
How many listeners do you think were out there just mad because we
Oh,
missed a couple weeks?
so many people are furious right now that we have dropped off the face of the earth due to all these conferences and everything else we're doing.
Yeah, I like to think that's how it is, but maybe not. But nonetheless, I do know we have a good listener base, and so hopefully we'll grow it as we keep covering good content.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Eric, as you know, I'm a fanboy of Utah and the mountains out there. What's weather like today?
Today it is lightly dusted. It's like a powdered donut up there. I'm seeing snow starting to creep down. And
Wow.
so, yes, it is happening. It is happening. We had a brisk sort of week last week. So I think we're looking at some moisture. We've had droughts, so we're due for some moisture. So maybe we can count on that.
Hopefully, as I get my ski season together, which I need to do right away, actually, I'll be heading out there. Maybe we can meet up again. Wow, the idea that it's snowing on October 10th, 11th is us Southerners can't fathom that kind of madness.
Well, I could not predict this. I could not predict it. So I'm very glad it's happening. Again, serious drought season. Can't wait for some weather to come in and show me otherwise. Absolutely.
So Eric, we were talking beforehand about topics, and there are a plethora coming off of VMworld. I'm sure that was a pretty successful conference for you guys. However, it's killing me that we don't do these things in person, and I'm excited. Hopefully for next year, if you could just tell the powers that be, we're definitely going to do it in person next year, and just tell them to make it happen.
Oh, I guarantee we will do it next year. And I will say I suffer the same problems looking at video content for hours and hours and days is just exhausting. It's exhausting to shake hands, to talk with people. Oh, just miss it so much. I'm with you.
Yeah, the human element. Okay, well, topic you picked, or we picked, but you helped me pick for today is, let me get my screen shared here.
Well, you're right about it being a plethora of topics. There's so much out there. So we have content for the next, couple of weeks. We're good.
Yeah.
Can make up for lost time.
So the blog we're reviewing today is introducing VMware Workspace ONE Intelligence for VMware Horizon, insights and analytics for your Horizon environments. All right, well, help me by kicking this off and tell me what the overall concept is and why it matters.
Well, similar to other, so it's kind of funny because you said, let's talk about something about Horizon. And yes, we have Horizon in the mix, but it is still powered by Workspace ONE Intelligence. Basically, ingesting all this different data around your Horizon environment and using the intelligence engine from Workspace ONE to talk about what your environment's doing and how it's running. So it's grabbing all of this different data, ingesting it, and then spitting out a dashboard to let you know how things are running in your environment and your employees' general experience with that environment.
So it's the overall idea that we're going to aggregate all of our VMware Workspace ONE related items, including Horizon, into a single place where we can look at what our folks are doing, look at trends, and we can react as needed.
Yeah, and it's a little different than our usual operations stuff. When we start looking at operations analytics, there's a lot of detail that goes into these. We have many different tools. We have ControlUp that we integrate with. We have our own vRealize operations. All of those are great, and they give you very granular detail, but actionable, direct information is what you have with this intelligence tool, where it gives you a dashboard that shows you exactly where your experience for the employee is maybe in trouble or where it's doing very well. And
so Eric, the next section here talks about advanced analytics. I think that's what you're talking about, where you have these graphs and control planes where you can go look at individual metrics and get a visual representation.
Yep. And that visual representation is super handy for actually knowing how much is being utilized or where the gaps are, and it's experience gaps specifically. Logon times, the latency for interaction, it's measured from the customer side. So we know exactly what their experience is. And then we can start targeting that with specific details.
And Eric, assuming most organizations don't have that guy, they sit there and just pay to look at this all the time. This is kind of, like trending type stuff. But then you have this next section talks about alerts and notifications.
Yes. And when it comes down to, you've got that guy who says, oh yeah, that's wrong. Something's out there and something's wrong. If he was there the whole time, he could tell your IT team, hey, there's a problem with this particular, these login times, or maybe these desktops aren't spinning up as fast as they should. So you're going to have, instead of that person just sitting there poring over metrics all day, because I know we have one, always have somebody like that in our back office. Well, anyway, we set up these intelligence engines to look at these pieces of data and then inform you or alert you. And you can do it through various means like Slack or Teams or other communication systems like that. Or maybe it self-logs a ticket to do the same thing. Depends on what communications platform you're using to use a particular workflow to get it started.
But the whole point is whatever solution you have in place, you're going to be able to leverage to, you're going to leverage this to talk to it so that you got your enterprise-wide system in play.
Yep. And if it's an email, it's an email. So, but we have different connectors for different tools.
Sure. So Eric, I'm digging in. I saw login durations showed up twice now. Let's face it. I mean, we're 2020 and we're still 2021. Oh gosh. And we're still chasing long login times, and users have just come to accept that's the way it is. But now we're going to get a proactive look at it real time, all the time.
Yeah. And login times is probably the low hanging fruit. When it comes down to it, maybe login times aren't your biggest deal. Maybe it's the spin up of the desktop. Maybe it's disk latency happening in unfortunate places. Maybe it's just routing concerns with your network. Your network isn't responding as quickly as you expect it to. And it will point in the direction where you can chase down that data and start resolving it.
And then so along that line, that means you have the ability to start drilling down and get more information on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, each one of these little data points that we pull in, it gives you these are more of an aggregation. So it's like aggregated results, but each of those aggregated results come from a few different items that pop in. And as you look at it, you can say, well, here's my login duration. How long did it take for the desktop to actually show up? And what is that experience overall? And if we need to, we can dig a little more into the back end when it comes to the operations details as well. But it'll give us some high level detail to track down, to do some research on.
So Eric, is there anything secret sauce in this where VMware has the ability to look at its own protocol better than others that you couldn't get out of other systems?
I would say everybody has access to the same detail. Now, our intelligence engine can probably negotiate that in ways that we can prescribe. But I will say you can, and this is the engineering answer, if you have the data and you know how to work with that data, you're going to get the results that you're looking for. However, we know what those metrics are. We know what the metrics are that people are aggravated by. I mean, we've been listening to people for a very long time. Every complaint is a gift when it comes to situations like that. So just like the IT departments, we understand where things, when they hit the user, are not exactly what experience they want. So we can prove that out. And I mean, we even have like the digital employee experience, and this is the next section below, where we actually can take in those different key points and we take them in and investigate them, and we know how they're going to be impacting the employee. These are, again, analytics and details that we know that are coming in, but we have leveraged against our own experience using our intelligence platform and even using workflows as surveys. Workspace ONE can initiate different surveys to say, how was your experience? Maybe it wasn't great. Can you tell us exactly what that was? Or maybe whenever we see a person who's having trouble inside of their environment, maybe latency issues are predominant in that space, we can actually initiate a survey to say, what happened? You know, what was your experience? We see that things weren't exactly in line, so we're going to kick off a survey for that person to understand exactly what that person is going through.
Well, Eric,
And then
you mentioned it a couple of times along the way that you guys are seeing so much data, and this is the space that this part of the VMware organization is involved in every day. That, you know, there's expertise there that the normal person doesn't have in their on speed dial, right? They don't have this knowledge necessarily of things that are happening worldwide even. And that's where having this centralized analytics portion helps out a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about automation at that point.
This next portion talks about fast remediation. Do you have any examples of what people might do to remediate when something is noticeably measured?
Yeah, when something goes awry, well, the key is understanding those metrics. Yes, we all have access to those metrics, but then utilizing our own understanding of how all of that works into an employee experience. And that's what we do with Workspace ONE Intelligence. We gather all those different metrics up, and then we can say, here's a guided root cause analysis to understand exactly where your problem is. Now, if it's a network issue, maybe things are being rerouted through a load balancer. Maybe it's hitting some dead air in that whole process. But really, we can look at it in each of those different dashboards. We can see exactly where that context lies, and then we can either revise that context to make it flow a little bit smoother, or maybe we just put the appropriate storage in there so that everything's a lot more speedy, or maybe one of your memory, maybe a particular host is not behaving appropriately. So maybe replacing some of the memory inside of that because error corrections are going off the charts. So in any one of those slices, we can nail down exactly who or what in the environment is causing issues. So we can guide people to that finish.
So Eric, in the article here, it calls out two sessions from VMworld. I'll just read them off: EUS 2090 and EUS 2069. Were you able to sit through these sessions, and can you kind of cover briefly, real high level, why those apply to this conversation?
Well, so the first one, 2090, really is about Workspace ONE's intelligence. And it focuses in on healthcare. But I would say that digital employee experience, the 2069 entry, is probably the one that gives you the most understanding of the end result, the use case that we are trying to shoot for, and the problems we're trying to solve. So I would look at the EUS 2069 first, and then reach back and say, what's Workspace ONE Intelligence doing? Healthcare is just a really hot space for this kind of information. And so I expect that their experience is going to help everybody ultimately.
Right, because those guys have used these technologies forever, and they've struggled forever.
Forever, yes. Thank you for
catching up where we have the tools to kind of finally help them the way they need to be helped, and they're first jumping onto the bandwagon.
Yeah. I thank them for their efforts in going through all these different bumps and bruises to get to this point. Yeah. It's made everybody else's life easier in the process.
Well, it's partially their fault too, right? They've chosen these big, fat, heavy applications that had to have a virtualization delivery, and they've just had to suffer through some bad implementations and bad management of implementations all these years, and now they've got analytics that can highlight truly what their pain is, and it's not just hearsay.
Yeah. Financially, It's a challenge because of all of those different devices that you need to have either hanging off it, or the computers, the servers that are running these things tend to be slightly underpowered because of budget. And then we see where those gaps are. It's best just to buy towards your end,
Well,
buy
you got,
towards your goal.
Moore's law, things get better faster as longer you go. And then, but at the same time, you've got, poorly configured profiles that just keep moving that bloated folder back and forth, back and forth. And now we got a chance to see it, measure it, and then see it, and then go do something about it. And that's where this analytics stuff continues to add more value.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
Well, Eric, I appreciate you joining. We've covered that topic, and based on VMworld just happening, we will have several more to cover in the weeks ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Plenty to go from. The well is not dry.
Yeah. And you, as promised, I will make sure everybody knows that Eric said we're going to have it in person next year. So
yeah,
if it doesn't happen, it's Eric's fault.
Ping it on me. I'm good for it. And I will see you there regardless of whether it happens or not, right?
I'm going to go anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go wherever the conference was supposed to be.
Yeah, I'll meet you there.
Yeah.
I'll buy you a beer or whatever else.
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate it, and good luck with the snow. I'm a little jealous. At the same time, I'd be a little apprehensive. I like to go to the snow, not live in it.
Yeah. That's I totally understand.
Right.
I have my own concern as I scrape my driveway.
All right, man. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
See ya.